is CNN.
Ships scour the waters off Hawaii for survivors from Friday's collision of a U.S. sub and a Japanese boat as the Navy searches for answers. Astronauts from the shuttle Atlantis add a key piece to the International Space Station. We'll have an update on their date with destiny. And a summer travel crisis in the making. Why employees at 4 of the nation's leading airlines are threatening to walk off the job. From the CNN Center in Atlanta, welcome to CNN Saturday. I'm Brian Nelson. Thank you for joining us. Well, we begin right now with the submarine collision off the coast of Hawaii. The search continues for 9 missing Japanese citizens who were aboard the research vessel that was struck by a U.S. Navy submarine yesterday. 26 others have already been rescued. The U.S. Navy is expected to hold a news conference at any time, and when that happens, we will carry it live. The 2 boats collided. I'm sorry, that will not be live. It'll be on tape. The 2 boats collided just before 2 p.m. local time yesterday in waters 10 miles south of Pearl Harbor. According to Navy officials, the wreck occurred as the USS Greenville was surfacing, emerging just beneath the Japanese research boat, shattering its hull. The Japanese boat sank within minutes. The Coast Guard says it found the Japanese crew and passengers in yellow lifeboats floating among the debris. The 26 survivors were airlifted out and were transported to Honolulu. These right now, what you're looking at are new Coast Guard pictures of the U.S. submarine. These were taken, I presume, early this morning. The Navy and the Coast Guard are continuing the search for the remaining 9 people. Of course, subtext to all of this is international relations with the Japanese. And in Washington, members of the Bush administration are offering their regret and condolences to the Japanese for the accident. Secretary of State Colin Powell has already contacted the Japanese government to offer his sympathies. The Pentagon is also working to manage relations with Japan. And joining us now with more on the Pentagon's reaction is CNN correspondent Kathleen Koch. Hi, Kathleen.
Hi, Brian. These 2 countries are obviously very important allies, and no one here in Washington, not at the Pentagon, not at the White House, not at the State Department, wants to see relations between these 2 countries sour because of what is still being described as a regrettable accident. At this hour, the submarine, the USS Greenville, is due back in port in Pearl Harbor, and Navy officials tell us that once it arrives there, investigators will immediately begin questioning some of the 130 crew members, as well as going over the captain's logbook. Engineers are also expected to survey the mild exterior damage that the submarine received in the collision. The Navy says that its subs do follow a very strict procedure, using sonar below water and periscope and even radar, if necessary, above water before surfacing in order to prevent such accidents. But a Navy admiral who helped preside over the commissioning of the Greenville says that such incidents, while tragic, are not uncommon.
While this is not a frequent occurrence, there's nothing new in what happened here, and so it's just an unfortunate fact of submarining life, but lessons will be learned from it and promulgated.
The round-the-clock search for the 9 people who are still missing from the Japanese vessel continues, and U.S. Navy and Coast Guard ships and helicopters continue scouring basically a 300-square-mile area. Now, Brian, ironically, it was just back in November that the USS Greenville was engaged in joint exercises with Japan's Maritime Self-Defense Force. They were testing submersible rescue, deep-sea rescue vehicles that could be used to rescue sailors who were trapped underwater in another country's vessels. Brian?
All right, CNN's Kathleen Koch. I wanted to ask you, Kathleen, a question about this. There was some, in the pictures we just saw of the USS Greenville, there were scratches along the side of the submarine. Now, has there been any talk of any serious damage to the sub?
There has not been any talk of serious damage. It's only been described as minor exterior damage, which was indeed probably those scratches that you saw. But as I reported, one of the main tasks as soon as that submarine docks is that engineers will go over it, from stem to stern to be certain that it will remain seaworthy. It obviously got to Pearl Harbor from the site of the accident under its own power, but they are certainly going to check it out to make sure that it is safe.
All right, thank you, CNN's Kathleen Koch at the Pentagon. In Japan, meanwhile, family members there are anxious for any news about this shipwreck. CNN's Tokyo Bureau Chief Marina Kamimura has this report from Tokyo.
The high school in the coastal city of Uwajima became a makeshift crisis center as relatives and friends anxiously pressed staff manning the phones for information on loved ones, 13 of whom are students there, and 2 their teachers. He seemed fine on the TV screen, says this man. The opposite reaction from another after failing to see his loved one on television. All had been on board the Japanese ship the Ehime Maru on one of the 3 annual research trips the school makes to the waters near the Hawaiian Islands. This particular group left Japan January 10th, part of an excursion for the Ocean Engineering Department of the Uwajima Fisheries High School, a vocational institute on the Japanese island of Shikoku. Prime Minister Yoshiro Mori rushed back to the capital from a golf outing to join top cabinet ministers and the task force that had been set up to gather information on the tragedy at a liaison office set up in his residence.
I am praying for the missing people to be discovered as soon as possible. I just spoke to the foreign minister. The U.S. side has offered an apology and say they are doing their best on the rescue operation.
That's who the Japanese had to rely on for their information. U.S. officials in Tokyo say that they were liaising throughout the day at all levels with their counterparts here in an effort to get details to the Japanese as quickly as possible. Tokyo says for now, the priority is the rescue of those missing, an operation for which they say they have received assurances of the utmost cooperation and efforts on the part of the United States. Relatives and officials here are also hoping to get clarification from the U.S. side as soon as possible on why this collision occurred. Marina Kamimura, CNN, Tokyo.
Well, submarine crews normally follow some strict procedures when they're surfacing. They use sonar equipment and eventually the naked eye to check the water for vessels. Now the Navy is trying to find out exactly what happened near the Hawaiian Islands yesterday. And let's turn to retired Captain Alec Fraser. He is a 24-year veteran of the U.S. Navy. And hopefully you can provide some insight on this, Mr. Fraser. First of all, in your mind, given what you learned, how can something like this happen? You have a submarine rising, a ship on top, and neither one seems to know the other's there.
To review the procedures we've been talking about through the day here, before a submarine surfaces, it does an acoustic search both ahead and behind itself, and then it rises to periscope depth and does an optical search to see what it can see. If the weather conditions are good, then it's able to detect a ship. However, if they do the acoustic search, and if that ship is not making any noise, if the engines are just are turned off, the ship is drifting, if there are no generators, then they cannot detect that ship till they rise to periscope depth. If the ship, the submarine, overshot that depth, then they'll have a collision.
Let me understand. Radar goes forward and backward, but not up.
Well, first of all, the acoustic detection underwater is done forward, and they can't cover back where the screws, where noise is back where the engines are, so the ship turns, and then it can look astern to where it used to be.
But it can't look straight up.
It cannot look straight up.
So then what the ship would have had to rely on periscope. Now, in this case, how would it not have been able to rise to periscope depth? And by the way, for the benefit of our viewers, these are some of the survivors, the 26 Japanese survivors of the research vessel arriving in Honolulu yesterday after their rescue. Now, how could that ship, how could the sub not have surfaced and used its periscope?
Well, it may have been in the process of surfacing to use its periscope, and in the process of coming up to the required depth may have overshot that depth and was on its way back down to the correct depth, which would indicate why it might get hit alongside or back towards the stern. The pictures that we're seeing from the Coast Guard off Hawaii right now are indicating some scrapes amidships, not necessarily back towards the rear of the submarine.
Right, exactly. Does that tell you anything?
It tells me that the first reports are sometimes never correct and that we have to sort of wait to see what happens once they pull into port.
Are accidents, we heard an admiral earlier saying that this is kind of commonplace, but is it all that commonplace?
To have a collision while a submarine is surfacing is probably its most dangerous time. It's like an airplane landing. You have to be extremely careful. The last event that this, well, not the last one, but a good example was when a submarine collided with a ship in Tokyo Harbor. And although it wasn't a surfacing, submarines are hard to see. It's a dangerous evolution. They've got to be careful as they come up and as they maneuver.
Now, let's flip this around. Take a look at the research vessel. The research vessel is out there looking for fish. Presumably, it has down-looking radar. Why didn't it spot the sub?
I would say for almost certainty that that fish-finding radar was not turned on, that had that radar been turned on, the submarine would have detected it in the vicinity. And when we say we can't...
would have detected the radar, vice versa.
The sonar coming down from the research vessel would have been detected by the passive sonar detection devices on the submarine. I don't think the fishing vessel was making much noise.
Would the research vessel have picked up the submarine with that radar?
It might have. It would look like, I guess, a big fish, but I would think that
fish around.
It'd be the biggest fish around, but they would also think that there's something wrong with my gear. They can't be anything this big where we are.
All right, thank you very much. Captain Alec Fraser, thanks for your insights. Appreciate it a lot. And for more on the submarine collision, you can go to CNN.com for the latest. And there you can also find a message board. Once again, the address is CNN.com, and the AOL keyword is CNN. An intricate mission in space is now underway. 2 crew members of the shuttle Atlantis are working outside their ship, attaching a very expensive and very essential component to the International Space Station. And here to explain it all to us, once again, is CNN space correspondent Miles O'Brien. Miles?
Brian, the hard work is over, and that is to say the $1.4 billion Destiny Science Lab is attached to the International Space Station. That's a big milestone for this $100 billion 15-year project, and was the moment that the Atlantis V crew was hoping and thinking most about. It happened pretty much on schedule, and let's take a look through the Cody Brand Illustrator, if we can, at some of the activities on board the space shuttle. Yes, there we go. There is astronaut Tom Jones, and this is in the process of conjoining those 2 huge pieces there. This, right down here, is the Destiny science module, more than 40 feet long, weighs 30,000 pounds on Earth. Of course, it doesn't do that up in space. About the size of a school bus. And this is the so-called U.S. node, which is part of the International Space Station, has been in space since December of 1998. And the 2, as you can see, have been sealed at this point. Now, what these spacewalkers were doing subsequent to the birthing of the $1.4 billion Destiny Science Module is connecting a series of cables and fluid lines. And in the course of connecting some cooling lines, they opened up a quick disconnect line on the space station, and some ammonia spilled out. Now, of course, spilling out in space is not exactly how it might occur here on Earth. The ammonia immediately crystallized, but was all around the spacewalker and may have at least left his suit with an ammonia smell. NASA is troubleshooting the situation to see exactly what happened, to see if they can rectify it and perhaps do a little different kind of scenario when they start going after the next set of fluid lines. Meanwhile, they've been connecting the data lines and the communication lines and the heating lines as well, and all that has gone off so far without a hitch. So far, more than 4 hours into this spacewalk, Brian, NASA can be pleased with what has gone on so far.
Very quickly, does this mean the space station is anywhere near completion?
Well, no, we've still got a ways to go. It's a 5-year build-out before it's considered a built station, but this is a significant moment because gradually they can start bringing in scientific experiments and beginning the science mission of the space station.
The very purpose of it, right?
Yes, exactly.
Thank you. CNN's Miles O'Brien. Thank you very much, Miles. And coming up, talk of mergers, buyouts, and threatened strikes. What do they mean for airline passengers this spring? That is just ahead. Stay with us.
At BASF, we don't make the mattress, we make it softer. We don't make the boots, we make them drier. We don't make the car, we make it more colorful. We don't make the snowboard, we make it stronger. At BASF, we don't make a lot of the products you buy. We make a lot of the products you buy better. BASF.
We as scientists don't believe things right off the bat. You always have to be seeking out what the truth really is. Research is the game here, because if you can find things out other people can't, then you can act on them.
When researching his personal investments, Dr. John Seeley Brown trusts CSFB Direct. That's because it offers access to 6 leading independent sources, all backed by one of the world's top research firms.
Research is a way to actually get a competitive edge.
People who know CSFB Direct.
athletes in the world head back to Australia to once and for all prove who's best. See the 2001 Goodwill Games from Brisbane on TNT, where the world's best prove it. Brought to you by Qantas Airlines.
A pleasure to see you again, sir. Your usual seat?
He's here. He's here. He's here. He's here. Come on, Robert. Watch this girl. I'll take care of the eucalyptus soup. I better stuff it a bit.
Oh, I like a window seat.
It's lovely to see you again, sir.
Once you've experienced Qantas business class, nothing else will do.
Join some of the biggest names in basketball, Michael Jordan, David Stern, and others, as they focus on basketball in America. Are some athletes joining the big league too soon? Wolf Blitzer hosts an NBA town meeting Sunday at 1 on CNN.
Well, it could be a tough spring and summer for U.S. air travel. 4 of the nation's largest airlines are facing possible strike action by employees. And with the 4 that is, controlling more than 2/3 of all domestic seats, it's an economic scenario both the airlines and the White House would like to avoid. Here with more on this is CNN's Gary Tuchman.
As trying as commercial flying has been in recent months, the chaos may be about to reach new heights. 4 of America's major airlines face potential strikes within the next several weeks.
We're interested in Delta's success, but we also want to be able to participate in that success.
Delta Airlines' nearly 10,000 pilots are currently voting on whether to authorize negotiators to keep the threat of a strike on the table. Results will be announced Monday.
Is it fair to say that this will probably pass pretty overwhelmingly, the authorization vote?
Yes, that is fair.
A strike could begin as soon as April 1st. The Atlanta-based airlines pilots say they should get paid more and full retroactive pay to last year. Airline management has dropped a proposal that would have pegged future pay increases to the airline's performance.
Everything is negotiable. That's what negotiations are for. It's to focus on issues and reach solutions.
At American Airlines, it's unhappy flight attendants who could end up going on strike. And at United Airlines and Northwest Airlines, it's mechanics. Altogether, the 4 airlines carry nearly 70% of the 588 million U.S. passengers annually.
I think that would be could have a harmful effect on our economy. And I would urge that the parties settle their disputes.
The president received a letter from the CEO of the American Society of Travel Agents with a foreboding message about these 4 airlines. The consequence of losing 2 or more at once, writes Richard Copeland, is almost unimaginable. For its part, Delta says it will continue paying other employees if the pilots strike, but will cancel all flights except for Delta's commuter airlines.
We are going to stop operations of the company because that's important as well for our customers and our employees and our pilots. It ends confusion.
For those who think last summer's delays were unbearable, there is certainly potential for this summer to be dramatically worse. Gary Tuchman, CNN, Atlanta.
Well, these are turbulent times for U.S. airlines. What with the growing cost for labor and fuel, talk of mega mergers and growing disenchantment among passengers. Joining us to discuss the changes now that are affecting the industry and what it may mean to you, the passenger, is USA Today reporter David Field. Mr. Field, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Well, if I can enunciate the problems facing the airline industry, it's strikes, weather, mergers, air traffic congestion, fare increases. It sounds like the industry's facing a mess. Is it?
It is. An aviation writer I know referred to this as the perfect storm. It's a sort of once in every 25 years you have this concurrence, this collocation of all these events happening at once. The possibility of labor action this spring and the mergers and acquisitions that have been proposed that create a real tight mindset among every airline employee. Am I going to get bought out? Am I going to lose my seniority? Am I going to lose my job? And that complicates the already very difficult process of labor negotiations, which are never easy in the airline industry, which are never quick.
Let's start with the mergers. What are they doing to the industry? Is it positive or negative?
It depends on where you work.
Or what seat you fly.
That's right. That's right. The 2 largest carriers in the country, United and American, basically proposed to snap up and carve up the 2 remaining mid-sized carriers that we have, TWA, which is probably going to be bought out by American, TWA, which is a failing and bankrupt company, and U.S. Airways. U.S. Airways agreed with United last year to a merger, and American Airlines in January came in and said, we'll help you buy up U.S. Airways. U.S. Airways is the major carrier on the East Coast, and what you would see if this happened, is the two largest carriers between them controlling about 50% of the seats in the country. And if American and United achieve that kind of critical mass, what are the other airlines going to do? What is Delta going to do? What is Northwest going to do?
I mean, this is really odd. Back when Ronald Reagan was president, deregulation was supposed to mean deregulation, and it was supposed to free up competition. We're getting exactly the opposite.
A lot of economists would tell you that this is the natural evolution from deregulation, that when you deregulate industry, it tends to get larger and more concentrated on the top, and it also tends to have a blossoming of a lot of small competitors. The theory hasn't totally worked. There aren't that many small competitors. There aren't that many new airlines that have made it. And I think we are facing the very real possibility of getting down to 4 mega carriers in this country, controlling, as the report said, 2/3 of the traffic. And with that, you have the real possibility of these major regional and national disruptions.
All right, just on that point, we're facing strikes in the scenario you just described. A strike becomes a very dangerous proposition. What about the possibility of strikes this summer? Do you think they're going to hit? What kind of effect will they have? And will they raise fares?
Fares are going to go up no matter what happens. And so long as fuel keeps going up, fares are going to keep going up. I don't think we're going to see 4 strikes happening at once. President Bush on Friday night indicated that he probably is not going to let the machinists union at Northwest shut down Northwest. But whenever there's this possibility, you have individual union members who have the legal right to refuse overtime. You have individual union members who turn to a very strict interpretation of the rules, and you can face a slowdown. Some people call it a wildcat. That's probably not fair. But we saw it on Northwest right before their strike. We saw it on United last year. Whether or not you feel that the union is doing the right thing, union members have legal personal rights, and it doesn't take very many unhappy pilots or very many unhappy mechanics to disrupt what is already a fairly tightly strung out operation.
In other words, maybe a lot of turbulence in the skies over America this summer. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, thanks very much. David Field from the USA Today. And we are going to take a short break and be back in a moment with a lot more news. And Chad Byers is going to have a look at your weekend weather. We'll be right back.
The Internet helps you reach millions of customers around the globe. But who's keeping you in touch with the Internet? Fujitsu. The possibilities are infinite.
Computer, note to self. I think we should integrate the customer.
Kema Azunma just can't get technology off his mind. Which means his customers don't always have to have it on their minds. WorldCom, Generation D.
Welcome to America Online, new version 6.0. The easiest just got even easier.
You just plug it in and you go.
With 6.0, all the best features are even better.
You've got mail.
Customer service is always there to help.
Parental controls help safeguard our kids.
You can log on from anywhere.
And now you can even hear your AOL email and get your favorite features on any phone just by dialing a toll-free number. 6.0 is the best AOL ever. America Online, new version 6.0. So easy to use, no wonder it's #1. Call 1-800-4ONLINE now.
If the value of your home has risen during the last couple of years, now may be a great time to refinance and cash out some of your equity. Just log on to Ditech.com or call us at 1-800-71-FIX. Today's low fixed rate is only 6.875%, APR 7.042% with 0 points. And there are no upfront fees. It's smart money from Ditech.com. Apply online or call us now at 1-800-71-FIX.
Trapped. Spine is broken. Freak blizzard came out of nowhere. Can't see. Hypothermia is setting in. Not gonna make it. Tell my wife I love her!
Search and rescue operations have geared up today off the Hawaiian island of Oahu for the survivors of the collision yesterday between a U.S. nuclear submarine and a Japanese research vessel. And we're going to take a look at the weather off of Hawaii right now. Let's call in Chad Myers at the Weather Center. Chad?
Brian, it's been a tough day out there. In fact, you can hardly see the islands. Here's a satellite picture, the top of the world here, and all the way back down, you can just barely see the islands through the cloud cover. I'm going to zoom in now, take you closer to the islands. You can begin to see the word right there, Diamond Head, and the rescue just off the coast there of Diamond Head. 4 to 6 foot swells at this point, winds out of the southeast at 15 to 30 miles per hour, and a small craft advisory in effect for all of the islands. The winds are coming out of the southeast from this direction here, so not as bad on this side or the lee side of the islands, but certainly larger swells here on the what they call the Mauka side, or on the upslope side of the islands in Hawaii. Put it back together now for you for California. We are going to see a kind of an ugly afternoon there. Central Plains, good shape, some light snow across the northern and western sections of New York, and also here. We'll zoom into California. This is where it has been really the worst for the entire day. San Francisco, L.A., the heat has been on, and I'm not talking about Mother Nature's heat, your heat bill coming on and off all day. Look at this. It's 51 right now in Santa Barbara, even cooler on up toward the north. 46 in Sacramento, and it's not going to warm up much even by Monday and Tuesday. This is a significant system that will be running in and finally across the central and southern plains with more rainfall there. By Tuesday, another storm system begins to develop across the southern plains, and Kansas City, Omaha, Chicago didn't get enough snow or ice last time. Here's the next system. By Wednesday, a rain, snow, icy mix here, showers to the south, and in a line just about like that. To the north of there, that's the snow. Right along that line is the ice and rain to the east. Does that sound familiar? Sounds just like the storm that just went by you. So, yes, you do have to be careful with this one. Another storm system. The one that went by yesterday, long gone, but here it is, coming on shore in the Pacific Northwest. It'll swing on by and swing through and make more weather for you, especially for the Central Plains by the middle of the week. That's all I have for you for now. Brian, back to you.
All right. Thank you, Chad. Well, there's a family in Canada that has turned the backyard into an Olympic-style sled run. The Mullins spent about 20 hours constructing their homemade luge course. It features a 6-foot-high ice bank and a main slide that has an 80-degree slope. The parents, Rick and Peggy Mullins, started the annual project in 1992. They add a new element every year. And they say, don't worry, Mom and Dad always test the run before they let the kids fly through the course. And that is it for CNN Saturday. Your health is up next after we take a quick look at our top stories in just a moment.
It's been a long time coming, but I'm leaving you in good hands. Sarah?
Thanks, Dad.
In business, you can count on things to change. That's why millions of companies count on Office Depot to help them take care of business.
Today on Evans Novak Hunting Shields, President Bush's point man on Capitol Hill, Congressman Rob Portman, today 5:30 Eastern on CNN.
At Landmark Ford, we always have a giant selection of top-quality used cars and trucks.
So while they last, every vehicle we're talking about today is just $99 down and $99 a month.
Not $99 for your first few payments. That's $99 a month for all your payments.
We have far more than we can list in just 30 seconds.
But cars priced this low always sell fast.
Call us immediately here at Landmark.
Landmark Ford, just off I-5 at the Haynes Road exit.
Get more.
Spend less.
Hi, I'm Gary. Welcome to Good Neighbor Pharmacy.
I buy the Good Neighbor products for a fraction of the expensive brands.
Good Neighbor Pharmacy is fast, and to me, time is money.
My pharmacist really listens, and that means a lot to me.
I save with Good Neighbor specials every month.
Discount coupons available, or enter to win free tickets to see the Harlem Globetrotters. Visit your neighbor, your good neighbor, with pharmacy locations throughout the Northwest.
Get to the Point with Greta Van Susteren, weeknights 8:30 Eastern on CNN.
Your health is up next, but first, here's a look at our top stories. Near Pearl Harbor, search and rescue crews are still looking for 9 missing people following the collision between a U.S. Navy submarine and a Japanese research ship. The Navy is also stepping up its investigation into the accident that happened when the USS Greenville nuclear sub rose to the surface and struck the research vessel. The Coast Guard says it sank so quickly the crew of the research vessel didn't have time to send a mayday. 35 people were on board. The Coast Guard rushed 26 survivors to nearby hospitals. And the U.S. Navy says that it deeply regrets this tragic incident. And some intricate work up in space at this hour. 2 spacewalkers from the shuttle Atlantis have now attached the $1.4 billion space lab Destiny to the International Space Station. 2 later spacewalks will be needed to complete the installation. Destiny holds all systems necessary to run the space station, and these include space for science work, life support, communications, and steering control. Our next news summary is at the top of the hour. I'm Brian Nelson at the CNN Center in Atlanta. Time now for your health.